Chapter 1. The city never truly slept, but tonight the air was heavier than usual. Neon signs flickered, their glow stretching across the damp streets of Berlin. People moved quickly, heads lowered, eyes wary. Whispers of war between East and West lingered in every corner cafe, every paper headline. Lloyd Forger, codenamed Twilight, adjusted his tie in the reflection of a shop window. He walked with the casual ease of a man blending in, but his mind ticked like a metronome. His mission, secure peace between nations, had drawn him deep into this fragile city of masks and secrets. What he didn't expect was to find someone who didn't fit into either world. The boy, if he could be called that, had appeared weeks earlier. No records, no family, nothing tying him to Ostonia. He'd been found wandering the outskirts, barefoot, clothes torn, eyes bright with a kind of innocence Lloyd hadn't seen in years. Goku, that was the name he'd given, spoken with a smile as if it were the only truth he owned. And Lloyd, against his better judgment, hadn't turned him in. There was something about the boy's strength, raw, unfathomable, that made him both an asset and a danger. Anya had been the first to sense it. She stared at Goku the way she did with stray animals she desperately wanted to keep. But her wide green eyes hid something else. She could hear his thoughts, chaotic and simple yet filled with an energy that rattled her small body. Food, fight, friends, food. It was endless and strangely comforting. At the Forger home, you're set the table. Her hands were steady, though her thoughts strayed to darker places. She had lived her double life long enough to know when danger lurked nearby. And this boy, this smiling, strange outsider, radiated danger, not the kind that carried knives in alleys, or whispered plots in government halls. Something larger, wilder. Goku sat cross-legged on the floor, sniffing the pot Yor had placed on the table. Smells amazing. What is it? Stew, she answered softly, watching his eyes light up as though she'd handed him treasure. Lloyd observed the exchange carefully. Goku's sheer presence was already shifting the balance in their fragile family act. Anya kicked her feet under the table, glancing between them all. He's strong, stronger than Papa, even Mama, but he's kind. He won't hurt us. He just wants to eat and laugh. I like him. Her tiny smile betrayed nothing, but she knew something the adults didn't. If Goku stayed, their family would never be the same. That night, as rain pattered against the windows, Lloyd stepped onto the balcony. The city stretched out beneath him, glowing and restless. He lit a cigarette, though he barely inhaled, letting the smoke curl upward. Behind him, the sliding door creaked. Goku stepped out, hair sticking up in every direction, shirt too big for his frame. The stars look different here, he said simply, gazing upward. Lloyd's heart stilled for just a beat. Different here? From where? Before he could ask, Goku grinned. I think I like it though. Feels free. Lloyd turned back to the skyline, his expression unreadable. The mission was already complicated, and with this boy in their lives, it was about to become far more dangerous. The rain fell harder, blurring the lights of Berlin, as if the city itself knew change had arrived. Chapter 2. The morning sun filtered weakly through the curtains, painting long streaks of gold across the small apartment. Anya shuffled into the kitchen, still rubbing sleep from her eyes. She froze when she saw Goku already there, sitting on the counter, swinging his legs, happily munching on a mountain of bread that Yor had left out. Morning, he said with his mouth half full, crumbs dotting his cheeks. Anya blinked. He eats like Mr. Chimera when I forget to feed him for a whole day. Her tiny face lit with a grin. Morning, Goku. Lloyd entered just then, crisp in his suit, every button aligned. His gaze fell on the empty bread basket, then on Goku's satisfied smile. A subtle sigh escaped him. That was supposed to last the week. Goku swallowed hard and scratched the back of his head. Oops, my bad. Guess I was hungrier than I thought. Lloyd pinched the bridge of his nose. In another household, this would have been comical. In his, it was a tactical issue. Food shortages, unpredictable strength, and the constant unknown of who, or what, this boy truly was. Later that day, the city pulsed with its usual rhythm. Trams rattling over tracks, street vendors calling out prices, children racing between alleyways. But beneath the ordinary hum, danger stirred. Twilight's informants had whispered of a new player moving through Ostania's shadows, an interest in an unusual weapon, someone whose description didn't quite fit a bomb or a machine. Instead, it sounded eerily like a boy with black, spiked hair and strength that defied reason. Lloyd kept his composure, but inside his mind turned sharp. If intelligence agencies caught wind of Goku, the fragile peace could shatter. At the same time, Yor had her own mission. A target marked for elimination waited in a quiet corner of Berlin. She moved like a shadow, her black dress blending into the night, blades glinting faintly under the street lamps. But halfway through her task, she sensed it, a presence following her, not the usual predators stalking, Not even a rival assassin, this was something purer. She spun, weapon poised. There he was, Goku, standing in the alley with a sheepish grin, arms crossed. You fight at night too? He asked, like a child discovering a new game. Yor's breath caught. How had he followed her so quietly? More importantly, how much had he seen? You shouldn't be here, she whispered, her voice low and edged. Goku tilted his head, unfazed by the danger in her tone. I could help. You're strong, but I'm strong too. Yor hesitated, her heart thudded, not from fear, but from the strange honesty in his eyes. Most people recoiled from her, terrified of the violence she carried. But Goku, he looked at her as if she were simply another fighter, not a monster in the dark. The silence stretched, broken only by the drip of water from a nearby gutter. Finally, Yor shook her head. Go home, Goku. This isn't a place for you. For once, he didn't argue, he only nodded, still smiling faintly. Okay, but if you ever need me, I'll be there. As he bounded away with inhuman speed, Yor pressed her blade to her side, steadying her breath. The world had shifted again, and she didn't know whether it was for better or worse. Back at the apartment, Lloyd studied Goku from across the living room. The boy sat cross-legged on the rug, laughing at Anya's attempts to balance peanuts on her nose. To an outsider, it looked almost normal. A family evening, safe, but Lloyd's instinct screamed otherwise. He had built this fragile illusion of domestic life to protect the mission, and now, with Goku tangled into their lives, he felt the ground shifting beneath him. The laughter rang louder, filling the small space, and for the briefest moment, Lloyd allowed himself to wonder, was this stranger a threat, or the strange glue binding them closer together? Chapter 3. Berlin carried a different kind of weight at night. Neon signs flickered over cobblestones still damp from afternoon rain, and laughter spilled from crowded taverns while, in the alleys, whispers of conspiracy curled like smoke. Goku didn't notice much of it. He walked with Anya perched on his shoulders, her small hands gripping his wild hair like reins. She giggled every time he pretended to stumble or crouch, launching them both into little leaps that felt, to her, like flying. Higher, Goku, she urged, eyes shining. He laughed an easy, carefree sound. If I go any higher, we'll hit the moon. Anya squeezed tighter, though her mind wasn't as light as her laughter. She could hear his thoughts, simple, clear, bright as sunlight. Food's good, people here are nice. I wonder if Yor will smile again like before. There was no calculation, no hidden edges. It was comforting. Meanwhile, Lloyd's eyes scanned the street behind them, every shadow a potential tale. He'd allowed this outing under the pretense of family bonding, but in truth, he needed to test the waters. Ever since Goku's sudden arrival, the undercurrents of Berlin's intelligence networks had grown restless. He slowed when he saw a man in a gray coat adjust his hat, trailing a little too neatly behind them. Another figure mirrored the motion on the opposite side of the street. Lloyd's jaw tightened. Not amateurs, agents. He leaned close to Yor. 2 men, 6 o'clock and 9 o'clock. Her hand twitched near her purse where her weapons lay hidden. Do we neutralize? Not here. Too many witnesses. We'll split. But before Lloyd could finish, Goku stopped in the middle of the sidewalk, turning his head curiously. He felt it, not in detail, but like a change in the air. Predators. The men approached, one reaching inside his coat. Anya's tiny voice broke the tension. Papa, bad guys. Lloyd glanced down. She wasn't wrong. His mind spun, calculating scenarios, until Goku simply grinned. Stay here, I got it. Before Lloyd could react, Goku blurred forward. To the watching crowd, it looked like he vanished and reappeared, gripping both men by their collars before they could even draw weapons. Gasps rose from passersby. The men struggled, eyes wide, but Goku lifted them effortlessly, like misbehaving children. You shouldn't sneak around, he said, tone almost scolding. Lloyd's heart hammered. Too much. Too exposed. Yor stepped forward, her assassins poised disguised under her gentle facade. Goku dear, set them down. There, just confused. Goku blinked, then shrugged, and dropped them unceremoniously. The agents staggered back, stunned. One reached for a gun, only to stop at the cold edge of Yor's stare. Something in her eyes froze him, even before her blade left its sheath. The men retreated quickly, melting into the night. The crowd, murmuring, slowly dispersed as if nothing unusual had happened. Berlin was practiced at ignoring danger. Back home, the apartment felt heavier than usual. Lloyd closed the curtains, pacing. What you did tonight? You exposed us. Goku tilted his head, puzzled. But I protected everyone. That's not the point. Lloyd's voice sharpened, though he kept it low for Anya's sake. Strength without discretion will draw more enemies than you can fight. For a moment, silence. Then Yor stepped in, her tone calm but firm. He saved us, and he didn't hurt anyone. Lloyd's eyes flicked to her, reading more in her defense than her words alone. She wasn't just speaking for Goku. She was speaking for herself, for the part of her that also lived in shadows, judged for violence she couldn't quite abandon. Goku rubbed his neck, uneasy. I don't want to cause trouble. I just want to help, that's all. Anya, from her spot on the couch, piped up. Goku is family. Family helps. The room stilled. Lloyd looked at her, at Yer, then back at the boy who had appeared from nowhere and upended their careful balance. And for once, he had no ready answer. The clock ticked quietly, each second stretching. The mission loomed. The secrets pressed in, and yet, in the fragile silence, a new bond had rooted itself, stubborn and undeniable. Chapter 4. The tension from the night before hadn't faded. It clung to the forger's apartment like smoke, invisible but impossible to ignore. Lloyd sat at the table, papers spread before him. Though his eyes weren't on the words, he kept replaying Goku's sudden display on the street, raw, impossible strength revealed in plain sight. Too dangerous, too unpredictable, yet undeniably useful. Anya sat on the couch with Goku, who was teaching her how to balance on one hand. She tumbled over repeatedly, giggling each time, and he clapped like she'd won a tournament. Yer, from the kitchen, smiled softly at the sound. The warmth between them felt real, unforced. Lloyd tapped his pen against the table. This wasn't a normal mission anymore, not with him here. Later, Lloyd slipped out under the guise of work. In truth, he met with his wise handler in a quiet corner of a library. Sylvia Sherwood leaned against a shelf, cigarette smoke curling from her lips, eyes sharp as knives. Your report was vague, Twilight. Tell me about this anomaly. Lloyd kept his voice low. His name is Goku, physically unmatched, faster than any soldier, stronger than any weapon I've seen. Asset or threat? Sylvia asked flatly. He hesitated, both. Her gaze didn't waver. Then control him. I'll remove him. The words sat heavy in Lloyd's chest as he left the meeting. Back home, Yer lingered by the balcony, the night air brushing her hair. She couldn't stop replaying the look on Goku's face when Lloyd scolded him, confused, almost hurt. Yer knew that expression well. It was the look of someone who had only ever tried to do good, punished anyway. She thought of her own life, the missions, the blood, the way her strength frightened people if they saw it too clearly. Yet Goku hadn't flinched at her. When she fought beside him, it felt almost natural, like he accepted her darkness without question. The sliding door creaked softly. Goku stepped out, holding 2 mugs of tea, one already sloshing dangerously from his careless grip. I saw you out here, he said with his easy smile. Thought maybe you wanted some? She accepted the cup, fingers brushing his for a heartbeat longer than necessary. Warmth bloomed in her chest, foreign and startling. Thank you, she whispered. They stood in silence for a while. The city stretched below them, lights flickering like restless stars. Goku leaned against the railing, eyes scanning the horizon with an uncharacteristic seriousness. People here, they hide so much, always looking over their shoulders. Yer glanced at him surprised. Beneath his simple words, there was a clarity. That's how this world works, she said quietly. Secrets keep you alive. He tilted his head, studying her. Do you have secrets too? The question landed like a blade against her ribs. Yor's lips parted, but no answer came. She turned away, staring down at her untouched tea. Goku didn't push, he just nodded, as if her silence was answer enough, and returned his gaze to the city. For the first time in years, Yer felt the urge to confess, not to unburden herself, but because maybe, just maybe, he would understand. Inside, Anya peeked through the glass door, her small face pressed to the pane. Their thoughts hummed in her head. Yor's turmoil, Goku's simple but steady loyalty. She smiled faintly, whispering to herself, Mama and Goku, they match. The idea made her feel safe, even if Papa might not agree. When Lloyd returned later that night, the air inside the apartment felt changed. He caught the faint trace of tea on the balcony, the unspoken ease in the way Yer and Goku stood close before parting. For the first time since the boy's arrival, Lloyd felt something unfamiliar stir beneath his practiced calm. Not suspicion, not strategy, something closer to unease. Because if Goku wasn't just an anomaly, if he was becoming part of them, then the mission had already begun to slip out of his control. Chapter 5. The city of Berlin carried on as usual, markets bustling, trains screeching, shadows whispering in alleys. But for the forgers, the threads of their lives were starting to tangle. Lloyd tightened his tie before the mirror, watching Yer fuss with Anya's hair in the background. Goku, perched cross-legged on the floor, chewed noisily on bread rolls Yer had left out. The sight looked domestic, almost perfect. Too perfect. Lloyd's reflection frowned back at him. He couldn't let his judgment blur. Later that day, Yer found herself walking beside Goku through a crowded shopping district. They'd taken Anya to buy supplies for school. Though the girl had darted ahead, pressing her nose against every toy display. Goku followed with childlike wonder, stopping every few steps to gape at food stalls and sweet stands. "You've never seen any of this before?" Yor asked, watching his awe. "Not like this," he admitted, grinning. "It all smells so good." His joy was infectious, and despite herself, Yor laughed. For a moment, she forgot the weight of her double life. She forgot the blood on her hands. She was just a woman, walking with someone who made the world feel lighter. Then, in the corner of her vision, a figure moved wrong. Too deliberate, too sharp. Yor's instincts sharpened instantly. Anya, who had drifted closer to the suspicious man, froze. She heard his thoughts clear as day. Target confirmed. Eliminate quickly. Her eyes widened. Mama. Before Yor could act, the man's hand slipped into his coat. But Goku was faster. One blur of motion, and suddenly the man was dangling upside down from a lamppost, his weapon clattering harmlessly to the ground. The crowd gasped. Yor's heart clenched. Too public, too reckless. But then she saw Goku's face, serious, protective, no trace of fear. He hadn't done it to show off. He'd done it because Anya was in danger. Security arrived, dragging the sputtering man away, muttering about drunkards causing a scene. Goku scratched the back of his head sheepishly, oblivious to the glares and whispers. "Guess I overdid it again, huh?" Yor didn't answer right away. She just looked at him, really looked. His power wasn't frightening to her. It was comforting, a shield that asked for nothing in return. "You saved her," she finally said softly. His grin widened. Of course. That evening, Lloyd sat alone in his study, piecing together reports. He knew the man at the market hadn't been random. An assassin, perhaps targeting someone else. But Goku's intervention had thrown everything off balance. Was this chaos helpful or dangerous? Twilight couldn't decide. But he knew one thing. Yor had looked at Goku with something different in her eyes today. Something softer. And that was a complication he couldn't afford. Outside, Goku trained in the courtyard, his body glowing faintly under the moonlight with the ripple of his energy. Yor stood at the window, watching. She should have turned away, buried herself in chores or in silence. But she didn't. Her fingers gripped the window frame as she whispered to herself, almost unwilling to admit it aloud. "Why does it feel like you're the one person I don't have to hide from?" He paused mid-kick, as if he'd heard something, and turned his head toward the window. Their eyes met across the still night, holding longer than either of them expected. Neither spoke, but neither looked away. Chapter 6 Final. The night had teeth. A storm swept over Berlin, its rain lashing rooftops, and blurring the glow of street lamps. In the downpour, shadows moved, agents, assassins, nameless soldiers of rival nations. And at the heart of it all stood Goku, Yor, Lloyd, and Anya, their fragile family pressed against the weight of the world. The ambush came suddenly. Lloyd had sensed it first. The coded message slipped beneath their door, the quiet ripple of danger too close to ignore. But by the time he prepared an escape route, the house had already been surrounded. Anya clung to Yor, her small mind ringing with the poisonous intent of dozens of men. "Capture the weapon. Kill the assassin. Take the child if necessary." Her voice trembled. "Papa, they're here for all of us." Lloyd's chest tightened. No more lies. No more pretending. He looked at Yor, then at Goku. "We don't have time for masks. We fight, or we don't survive." Yor nodded, the Thorn Princess rising in her like a forgotten instinct. And Goku? He simply smiled, his fist tightening. "Good." I was starting to get restless. The first wave struck hard, rifles spitting fire through the rain. But Goku was already there, a blur in the storm, his body a wall between danger and the family inside. Bullets flattened against him, dropping harmlessly into puddles. Yor moved next, silent, deadly. Blades danced from her hands, striking throats and wrists with clinical precision. She was elegance woven with violence, every motion guided not by orders, but by something fiercer, the need to protect those behind her. Lloyd fired with cold efficiency, every shot a calculation. He covered Yor's blind spots, anticipated movements before they happened. The perfect spy, stripped of pretense, fighting for something real at last. And Anya, her heart pounded, tears mixing with rain. But she reached deeper, listening harder. Every thought around them was chaos, but she found clarity. Where the enemy would strike next, where the traps lay hidden. She whispered warnings between sobs, and every time, her family moved just in time. Together, they were unstoppable. But the enemy had prepared. A final figure emerged through the storm. A commander wielding strange experimental tech, a suit buzzing with artificial energy. His weapon crackled, sharp enough to pierce even Goku's skin. For the first time that night, blood ran down Goku's arm. Yor gasped, moving to shield him. But he raised a hand. "Don't. This is mine." The man lunged. Goku met him head on, the ground shattering beneath their clash. Energy roared, lighting up the night brighter than thunder. For a heartbeat, it seemed the storm itself bowed to their fight. Then, with a single strike, pure and clean, Goku ended it. The suit crumpled. The commander fell. Silence followed, broken only by rain. The aftermath was quiet. Bodies lay scattered. Weapons abandoned. Lloyd gathered Anya into his arms, her small frame trembling but alive. Yor touched Goku's wounded arm, her usual composure cracking into raw worry. He only grinned, tired but unbroken. Guess I got carried away again. She shook her head, gripping him tighter than she meant to. No, you kept us safe. Lloyd watched them, something unreadable flickering in his gaze. He knew this mission had become something deeper, messier than his handler would ever allow. But for once, he didn't care. Twilight, the perfect spy, let himself breathe as Lloyd Forger, husband and father, standing beside people who had earned his loyalty in blood and storm. When dawn broke, Berlin stirred as if nothing had happened. Newspapers spoke of gang disputes, the truth buried under layers of politics and silence. But inside the Forger household, the truth was alive. Over breakfast, Anya munched noisily on her food, kicking her legs beneath the table. Yor tried and failed to hide the faint smile tugging her lips as she poured tea. Goku laughed too loud at something small, filling the room with his warmth. And Lloyd, he watched them all, realizing that somewhere along the way, this had stopped being pretend. For Goku, the warrior who had fallen into a world of shadows, the answer was simple. He didn't need to understand espionage or politics. He just needed to protect this home, this family, and the strange, dangerous love growing between him and Yor. The world would keep sending threats, but together they would face them, and maybe, just maybe, love was the strongest mission of all.